Yeah, man, I checked out Alberto El Patron's Youshoot with kayfabe commentaries earlier tonight, and I gotta tell you off the break, for those of you that remember the RF video shoot interview I reviewed of Del Rio, I told you guys how that one was just pretty fantastique, as he was saying that word a lot, and I also had told you how, a lot of these shoot interviews, including the RF video one with Del Rio, it was just so overwhelming. And I mean, my God, I couldn't help but say, Rob's got to work on a new approach and being very energetic with these people that he's talking to. I can only imagine how it is when the cameras are not rolling, whatever type of energy or charisma is happening before these cameras come on, it needs to carry over once the cameras are on, because I'm not the only one that's like, Rob Feinstein, he's got to start switching it up on his interviews. I mean, it's just so long and overbearing. And with kayfabe commentaries and this Youshoot that Alberto did, one thing you notice off the break with him during what's an hour, 40 minutes, he is energetic, he's in the zone, he comes off like he actually wants to be there, and that's the thing with these Youshoots, like they sign up for this knowing that they are at the mercy of any type of questions, comments. Unfortunately, the "how big is Batista's dick" is still trending in these Youshoots. I don't know what the hell is up with people's obsessions with Batista's dick. It's quite silly, quite honestly. But you notice off the break, Alberto is just very laid back, very energetic, like he wants to be there. He answers the questions without any problems. I mean, he just seems completely different than the Del Rio that we got on the RF video. Whereas on the RF video shoot interview, he's like contained and just question, answer, next, question, answer, next. This one, he just seems to be playing a lot more with this one. And just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a brief recap, he did go in depth about the circumstances surrounding his firing. He did tell the story again. He basically confirmed what many of you all had heard or read about in interviews that he gave, that basically the WWE employee had called him a derogatory name. He demanded an apology. This person was just smiling at him, and he smacked him. Contrary to the reports that Del Rio snapped and he just assaulted a random WWE employee, no, that wasn't the case at all. And it's unfortunate that poor rumor had came about, as Del Rio said that his co-workers and a couple other people that he's friends with that witnessed the incident go down, they were the ones that had leaked out, what really had went down. As he said, he's not one to bully guys around and all that. And sure enough, the timing was very cool too, because Sean Oliver had showed a video clip of Matt Sydal. And those of you that remember, we reviewed Matt Sydal's Youshoot. If you don't recall it, it's on our YouTube channel right now under DVD reviews. And Sydal basically kind of echoed the exact same thing that Del Rio was saying in describing the type of person that he is, as far as one to not be bullied around, standing his ground and all that. Sydal basically backed him up, and it came at a time where Sydal had heard about Del Rio's release for like the very first time, because it had went down right as Sydal was shooting the interview with kayfabe there. And Del Rio had some very kind words to say about Matt Sydal. He said that Sydal was one of the first people that had welcomed him into the WWE. As from there, The conversation turned into why did he choose AAA over CMLL. He basically said at the end of the day it was all about money, just about making a smart business decision. And he gave Conan a lot of credit, saying that Conan and crew, they basically gave him an amazing offer. They had the right sponsors that were in place. AAA, you can just, when it's all said and done, they're going places. And hey, the package that they made available to him, he just could not resist it. The conversation also had touched upon his run in the WWE, and more than once during this 1 hour 40-minute documentary, if you will, Alberto put over John Laurinaitis, saying that when John Laurinaitis was in charge, it was awesome, which basically was covering like the first 4 years that Del Rio was there. The last 2 years, he said it was brutal. He cited the change in producers, writers, new people being hired left and right, that just really, in the end, it just made it no longer be a really fun environment to work in. One of many highlights I enjoyed from this was his MMA career, how he learned MMA and all that. That's a really good listen that you guys need to check out. There was like an entire chapter dedicated to it. A lot of people are under the impression that Pride, that's pretty much where it all began for him. No, he actually began his MMA career in a promotion called Deep. Like how deep is your love? And he said that he is still friends with the owner of Deep, and that they talk on a regular basis, but it was Deep that gave him the opportunity to get into MMA. And basically, if it wasn't for Deep, he probably would not have gone on to do a little bit of work in Pride. So great stuff right there when he talks about his MMA career. Another thing that was touched upon was working in Mexico compared to the United States. Alberto pointed out that in Mexico, it's a lot of fun. In Mexico, you're working with friends, and when you're wrestling, it's basically just a bunch of flying around, whereas in the United States, you have to have logic when you wrestle. In Mexico, I believe they wrestle on the right side. In the U.S., they wrestle on their left side. And he talked in depth about how, what he's noticed in the USA, at least with the WWE, it's just not fun. It's like, okay, go out there, do XYZ, but don't do this shit. If you do this shit, then we're gonna fine you and or we're gonna suspend you. But in Mexico, you're working with your friends, and what more can you ask for when you're working with your friends? You work with your friends, you get to have a good time. It's very loose, very laid back out there. He talked about working with Ricardo Rodriguez. You could genuinely tell from the sincerity in his voice that he just loves the fact that him and Ricardo have been able to become such good friends. Funny mention of Sheamus. He called Sheamus a very stiff worker, but he loved to work with him. But he called him very stiff, especially when it comes to that bro kick. He says you actually need to have both of your hands wrapped around your head, because Sheamus will actually literally try to kick your damn head off. He talked about enjoying working with Christian, Rey Mysterio, John Cena. The original Sin Cara was touched upon. A lot of people had talked about how there was that one match that Alberto and Sin Cara had together where it kind of seemed as though Alberto worked very stiff against Sin Cara, the original Sin Cara, I might add. He did shed a little bit of light on that. He basically had talked about how he heard Sin Cara had broke one of his index fingers, and he basically wanted the match called off, and he was so freaking pissed when he heard that. That's why he started to work stiff against Sin Cara. And when the match was over, they had a talk. Sin Cara was like, hey, how come you were acting a little funny out there? And he basically told him what was up, and Sin Cara basically told him, hey, honestly, I'm just starting to feel really miserable being here. I don't really like working here anymore. And Alberto told him, well, if that's the case, then just quit. Just go work elsewhere. And sure enough, about 2-3 weeks later, that's exactly what Sin Cara did. But he feels that ultimately what led to the original Sin Cara not being successful in the WWE was basically refusing to learn the WWE system, avoiding their developmental plan and all that, not going through there and all that. He felt that was really what ultimately set him up for failure. Hilarious as fuck, kill, marry segment. There was the girls that were up for grabs. Basically, it was Melina, Rosa Mendez, Vicky Guerrero. Those were the choices. I'm not going to spoil that for you guys. Interesting story about how do you get autographs and all that from Alberto Del Rio and other wrestlers at the airport. I thought that was a hilarious segment right there. And see what else. He also addressed the bar fight that went down with Drew Galloway in Los Angeles. If you remember that weekend at SummerSlam when we saw Del Rio, he had a big black shiner over his eye. Remember that? And as far as the racism and everything else that was just going on in the WWE tied into him ultimately saying what he was saying in interviews about the WWE and everything. Basically, at the time that this interview with Kayfabe Commentaries was conducted, he had just inked a deal with WWE. Basically, he said that there were some things that they said, and there was things that he said, and that basically they both took back what they said. As basically they're going off, they're doing their thing. He's now able to go off, do his thing. He's now able to wrestle in the States, as you all know, as a result of having a really, really good lawyer, which in part, I believe, came with help from Conan, which, when you really think about it, is why he's been doing all the work he's been doing in AAA and why we're able to see him in Lucha Underground and all that now. And he basically said that, bygones are bygones, and that he doesn't believe that the door is shut on a WWE return, that anything is possible. Maybe somewhere down the road he may end up working with them again. There was a really great question asked about the typecast, if you will, of Hispanics in the WWE. I'm not going to go all in depth about that, but it was really one of those, And of course, yours truly, I popped up in there. I had a very solid question to ask Del Rio, of which Sean really loved it. I could tell. Del Rio actually really enjoyed the question as well, as they spent a couple of minutes addressing. It was a 2-part question that I had, and just to set up for it, to build up for it, it was really awesome. I think I was talking for like about maybe 55 seconds. That might have been a little bit too long. I try to do my best not to be long-winded. Sometimes I slip when I'm just all wrapped up in whatever my question is, but the question that I had was really on point. And the way I'm trying to do these DVD shoot reviews now, I'm not trying to just give you guys all the nitty and the gritty, and basically it's like, hey, I watch and review the DVD, so you don't have to. And it's basically like, thanks, Lee, I was right there. I mean, you just literally gave me play-by-play. I felt like I was right there. I'm trying to now do these DVD reviews in a way where I give you just a little bit of, okay, here's what was talked about here, and here's what was talked about there. And I basically want to try to set it up in a way where hopefully it'll engage you in a way where you will jump out there and you'll check out the DVD yourself. I mean, there's multiple ways you can see this. You can either grab a DVD copy. Standard is like $20. If you're lucky, you might be able to get the signature limited edition, which is basically it contains different DVD box art, original newly designed box art compared to the standard. and the disc is signed by Alberto Del Rio. I think there might also be a signed picture opportunity with that as well. You know, like you get a signed autograph from him or whatever. I'm not sure. Or you can pay $15 to, I believe, watch it on demand via Kayfabe's website. So, I mean, you have multiple options as far as checking it out, but I would highly recommend that you scoop it up. If you did not check the RF video version out yet, and you're like, okay, Lee, do I go with the RF video or do I go with Kayfabe? I would recommend you go with Kayfabe. You know, a lot of the questions that came for this Youshoot with Alberto, it was actually very on point. I thought it was going to be very, very foul-mouthed and just downright freaking stupid. I mean, there were a couple of questions I could have done without, but out of 100%, I would have to say 90%, this was a really, really great Youshoot edition, to the point that I hope somewhere down the road maybe Sean can sit down with him again and do a little something. But I enjoyed it. Scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being absolute favorite. I give this Youshoot a solid... I give it a solid 9 out of 10. I mean, the hour 40 minutes, it just went by so quick. And like I said, Del Rio just really comes off like a guy that just really cares about wrestling so much. He really loves the sport of professional wrestling, and he just continued to endure what he was enduring in the WWE because he just wanted to entertain the fans, despite the fact that he was only home with his kids, with his wife for like 36 hours before he had to go back on the road again for several more days. And when you're hearing him and you're watching him interact with Sean, you just couldn't help but kind of say to yourself, man, you know, if it wasn't for this thing going down with this WWE employee, Del Rio would probably still be with WWE today, possibly, or maybe he would have let his contract lapse and he would have rolled out, who knows. But just the fact that he kept enduring the changes that was going on in the front office, behind the scenes and all that, you know, I'm sure the money was good for his family, you know, but also at the same time, his face was being seen in millions of households across the world, and you know, he was putting smiles on a lot of people's faces. I mean, you could genuinely tell that he just really, really cares about entertaining the fans, and you know, he definitely has my respect. You know, I actually ended up coming away from this having newfound respect for this guy because I was able to see more of his personality shine through compared to RF video. So, and oh, by the way, I got to make sure I mention this because I would be set on fire if I did not mention this key critical piece of news that came about from this Youshoot. As far as his biggest supporters go, one of them was Vince McMahon. I mean, he cited Vince McMahon many times during this Youshoot as somebody that really respected him, his character, really wanted nothing but the best for his character to succeed in the WWE, and that when all the things started to go down with Del Rio becoming a babyface and him and Ricardo being broken up and all that, that was not Vince McMahon's call. Alberto would not say whose decision that it was, but basically when it was all said and done, there was somebody high up in a WWE executive role that did not like Alberto with Ricardo, and they just wanted to break that up. They had been trying to break that up for like the longest time, and somehow they were able to finally make it go down. And after it happened for like a couple of weeks, Del Rio was like, okay, I've had this. I've got to talk to the old man, Vince McMahon. And he told him, and Vince was like, yeah, I could tell that you're pretty miserable out there. Okay, look, don't worry about it. We'll change it. And like the very next week, they went on ahead and they changed it. I can't remember the pay-per-view that it was, but you guys remember how it ended up being like Bizarro Land with that next pay-per-view that Alberto Del Rio had a match in. I can't remember the opponent right now, as when they were talking about it on the Youshoot, it like instantly brought back the memories as soon as I heard the pay-per-view event and the person that he took on. It was like, oh yeah, that did go down. But he credited Vince McMahon as somebody that was a big supporter of his and always tried to give him advice on how to be successful on the roster and all that. He respected him. He was very familiar with what his family has done for the wrestling business, and he really did try to look out for him. And it's just unfortunate that there were some people that did not share the same views and passion that Vince McMahon had, as it just kind of seemed like they were trying to, as Alberto put it, in WWE, it just comes off as if certain people that are put in position try to set you up for failure. They try to stab you in the back and all that. And you just genuinely come away off of this really saying to yourself, man, Alberto really kind of came off like he was freaking miserable over there in the WWE during his last 2 years, again, because of all the changes that was going on with the writing staff, from a production standpoint, executive roles and all that. And he basically was kind of like, you know what? This is not fun anymore. It's time to roll the hell up out of here. And if you've been following his work and what he's doing now in AAA, Lucha Underground, you can just genuinely tell that this man is having a great time right now, which I think is good for his fans, especially those that really came across his work and loved it in the WWE. Hope that helps you out in determining if you're going to check that out or not. If there is a future shoot DVD or a DVD of any kind, doesn't have to be wrestling related, if there's something you want me to check out next, you can always let me know. Interact, hit us up all throughout social media. Love to hear from you. Next week, we will review the Iron Sheik documentary that came out not too long ago. I have had that on the back burner, and it's like, gotta get to it. And I just kept getting sidetracked with other stuff, but that is queued up to watch next. Very ecstatic. Looking forward to it.